fabulous lineup, I must say. It's Sherí Barros. Please welcome her. Sherí is an award-winning brand marketing executive with a body of work spanning almost 20 years across some of the most recognized sports entertainment brands and front offices. So she currently serves as the Global Strategic Director of Sport Alliances for the American Cancer Society. So she works alongside the NFL to lead one of the most impactful cross marketing partnership, I'd say, in pro sports, and that is the NFL Crucial Catch. That is an initiative to fight cancer, as most of you probably know already. So I have to say, welcome, Sherí. I'm so happy to have you.
Thank you so much, Nora. I'm so happy to be here.
So many of us have that kind of moment when we fell in love with sports, right? Mine was like the World Cup, the FIFA World Cup 1990 in Italy. But I think you had one as well, didn't you?
Yes, and I don't think I've ever shared this publicly in this way, but my moment was actually the Atlanta Braves. I grew up in Atlanta, originally from Atlanta. I was a huge Atlanta Braves fan, more specifically a Javier Lopez fan and Andrew Jones, who were two of my favorite players on the team back in the 90s. So that was really what sparked my passion in just following sports. It was also a way for me to connect with my dad growing up. We used to watch Braves games together. And of course, I had the privilege of being in Atlanta when we got the 96 Olympics. So that was another sort of, marquee moment for me in childhood that sparked my passion for sports.
Yeah, that is so interesting. I think most of us has that kind of moment.
Yeah.
But so like every career journey is unique as well. And like sports may not be the obvious career path to many.
Yeah.
So I think it's interesting to hear where your career journey in sports actually started off.
Yeah, and that's a great question. So for me, like I mentioned, I was a sports fan, in high school, but I didn't really see it as a career really until college. And I kind of fell into it. Did my undergrad at Florida State, got a bachelor's degree in psychology. And like every other undergrad who's, entering their senior year, I was encouraged to go get an internship and, went to a career fair. I happened to be, in Tallahassee, Florida, just across the road there, about 2 hours from Jacksonville, Florida, where the PGA Tour is headquartered. And they were out recruiting interns. It was during the height of Tiger Woods, success and professional golf. And there was actually a diversity internship program that brought me in to intern on the PGA Championship. So there I am, about to finish my psych degree. And I had this phenomenal experience interning with at the time, it was the 11th largest sporting event in the world. I had no idea. I knew nothing about golf going into it, but really enjoyed it and really came to understand and appreciate sports as a career path. So that really caused me to finish my degree. I was a little too close to change degrees at that point. But I'd heard a lot about interning in the business to get into sports. And so I went to grad school for sports management and was able to do 2 subsequent internships, one with the Texas Rangers in player community relations and one with a sports agency before I got my first full-time job in sports with the Atlanta Falcons.
I mean, that is so inspiring. And I can't help to I would want to follow that path because I'd say I guess you eventually found out that your passion was branding, right. But with that extensive career of yours, I think many of us would be inspired to know more about that path and how you ended up here.
Yeah, and it's definitely something that found me. To your point, I am a brand marketer at heart. It's part of the reason I love brand innovators. I love the discussion and I love, the camaraderie with colleagues that are passionate about brand marketing. So for me, I found my way there from my opportunities in the front offices of professional sports teams. So I started out in community relations and grassroots marketing, and then that grew into advertising. And one of the benefits of working in a front office for those that work in front offices is that you are working in a small business. And so you're able to touch and experiment and develop skills in a lot of different areas. So I really learned marketing by doing and by practice in the front office and really discovered that passion for the brand marketing side. So, I went from the Falcons to, I did a small stint with the Atlanta Braves, went to Oakland for the Oakland, now Las Vegas Raiders, spent some time there. And then my last team, I worked in pro team sports for about 12 years. My last was the San Antonio Spurs, which I absolutely loved. I got to manage the marketing department down there before leaving and transitioning into the agency side. So I think my brand marketing passion and having, worked in that area for a team made me a lot better consultant. And I started consulting with an agency in Atlanta and really leading the national sports portfolio. So really recommending to our client at the time was AT&T subsidiary Cricket Wireless, who was undergoing a merger acquisition, and really looking for someone who understood, the professional sports team side to help them with which teams would best align with their brand. And so that was a phenomenal experience. Got to travel all over the country, working on their sports portfolio, negotiating deals, and then work with a phenomenal team to execute the deals. Went in and left and started my own consultancy at that point. And then the American Cancer Society found me. It was actually a former colleague, David Doan, who I credit with really my being with the American Cancer Society. And when he, saw that I was available, so to speak, as a lot of us say when we transition, he wanted someone with, insight to lead the NFL partnership. And I would have to say, of everything I did, I would always actually, when I would speak about my work, whenever someone asked me my favorite part of working in sports, it really was that connection to the community. And every sports team has a nonprofit arm. So now to be able to do that full time and work in philanthropy and take all of my marketing and branding skills and work with a phenomenal team, both at American Cancer and at the NFL, is just the perfect marriage, I feel like, of the career. Yeah.
I totally want to tap into that more, because I think it's pretty obvious to talk to you about that whole kind of sports and athletes, how they can make a difference, etc. I think that subject is going to be what we are going to talk about here. I just kind of, because it's this specific day, and I'm just kind of interested because in the prep talk, we talked briefly about Sam Gordon, like the young, super talented football player who broke barriers left, right, and center already. And for me, when I play football, I was looking at, Julio Jones or Odell Beckham Jr. And I'm so happy to see that there might be female role models in the future. So thinking sports marketing is still dominated by men. So do you think it matters to have female role models also in this business?
Absolutely. And I think it's been one of sort of the most proud parts of my career is just being able to inspire women, that you don't even think about. I think once you're in the business and you're doing it, sometimes I don't even think about being the only woman in the room or the only African American in the room. But when you see other people, that are coming into this business that you're able to inspire, it's so humbling. And it's a great time for women in sports, not only on the business side, of course, but also, on the operations side, having come from the Spurs where they named their first, female coach on the NBA team there. So it's just really a great time, I think, across both on the field and off the field for women in sports. And I'm just humbled to be a part of it. I think that we're able to now express ourselves and bring our unique perspective, our unique leadership style, our unique sports background, because as we know, as you mentioned, women are athletes, as well. And so they're a really great fit, actually, to have, executive and leadership roles in sports.
Yeah. I totally agree. And I also think it's a powerful moment. And I also think the visibility of women like yourselves, but also athletes, it also makes other women believe in this as a career path. And that is powerful. So social awareness, a good cause, and the power of sports, it's a really strong combination, I'd say. And you work with a Crucial Catch, and you're doing a lot to connect those things. Can you tell us more how that works for you?
Yeah. So again, one of the things that struck me when I was, asked about this opportunity, to work with the NFL and American Cancer was the cause itself. And as you mentioned, and as we all know, sports has such a unique role to play in furthering society and moving society forward. And that's what I love the most about this business. And so when I, learned about Crucial Catch and the partnership that's been an 11-year, going into our 12th year partnership with the NFL, and the fact that I didn't even know at the time that the NFL has been funding health equity work in the cancer space. So all of the money that's raised from Crucial Catch actually helps to provide screenings and prevention resources in underserved communities, particularly Black and Brown communities. So that was something that really spoke to me. And I think that's been my guiding compass and my passion, throughout. It's just, again, it's such a privilege to be able to use sport for such a great cause like that. African Americans actually have the lowest survival rate of cancer here in the States. And we are doing work with the NFL and utilizing sport to change that. So we've expanded this program since we partnered with the NFL. It used to be breast cancer specific. It's now multi-cancer. And with that, again, I just can't say enough about the people I get to work with at the NFL, because they're so committed and they're so connected to the cause and really so open to growing it. So we were really rebranding Crucial Catch when I joined, because we were moving from, a lot of people, when I tell them about Crucial Catch, I say, oh, you remember the pink on the football field every October? And they say, oh, yes, I know that program. Well, now that we've expanded to multi-cancer, we are multicolor. And so now you see multicolor hashtags, and it's really continuing to re-educate the fans and the community that we've now expanded into prevention, early detection of multiple cancers, and risk reduction, and the health behaviors, health and fitness that a lot of people connect to other disease prevention is connected to you reducing your cancer risk, which, what better organization than a professional sports team to send that message from a health standpoint. So we activate throughout the year now, because again, we're beyond. We're also, of course, continuing to do work in breast cancer, but we're also addressing all forms of preventable cancer.
Yeah, I think you touched upon it already, but I think it's super interesting with the awareness, but I'm also interested in the the funding, where it goes and how it kind of plays into a larger perspective than only fighting the disease, right?
Yeah. So the fun part of, again, this job is it's a quintessential sports marketing job. It's just that we're using everything to raise awareness for the issue and to help fund, the fight against cancer, particularly in underserved areas. So everything that we do from a promotional standpoint, again, the NFL is just phenomenal in their support of us and having the opportunity to get partial proceeds from auction items and from the merchandise and the gear that players wear. So that really drives the funding to those change grants, which I mentioned. Those are the name, what we call them, are change grants, that go into the form of really financial and educational resources in a health center in an underserved community in each NFL market. So each NFL market has a place to go that's, by virtue of NFL funding for this program American Cancer Society set up. And when I hear stories, I'll just give one testimonial. Again, it just touches me, of a woman. She is actually was treated at the center we have near the Patriot area in Boston. And she had, a lump in her breast, and she was past her first in the United States. Health insurers obviously have rules around how many screenings you're permitted to get depending on your plan. So she had already had her screening quota for the year, and then she found the lump. And so through our health center service that was funding cancer screenings for those that weren't able, she was able to get that screening that she wouldn't have otherwise been able to afford. And she caught cancer early, and she's a survivor because of that. So that's the real work that we're doing, the stories behind it, that again, I'm humbled to be able to do.
Yeah, that's such a powerful story. I guess that's makes the job really powerful also in the day-to-day work that you do. And you were mentioning the great partnership with the NFL, and but I'm also thinking football as a sport, or sports in general. I mean, what would you say is unique in its strength to actually unite people for a cause like this?
Yeah, I think it is. It's definitely the fact that our message is really twofold. So we're attacking cancer in underserved areas, but then we're also attacking cancer across the country. And an interesting stat I learned is that less than 50% of U.S. adults know what they need to do to reduce their cancer risk. Inject the NFL, which has the highest ratings, in terms of sports viewership and really television viewership across the board, some of the most viewed television programs every year, NFL games. So what better platform to be able to educate, fans on what they can do to reduce their cancer risk. And a lot of that is health and wellness behavior. So again, it's being able to use their unique platform to send that message of ways that you can reduce your risk, reminding people to get screened, reminding people that we're all in this together, and you may not be due for a screening, but maybe it's your mom, or maybe it's your brother, or maybe it's your sister or friend. So I think that having the NFL's platform is certainly helpful. And then in addition to the NFL work, we work with players directly. So we have over 30 NFL player ambassadors that we work with directly, most of whom have been touched by cancer in some way. And so we're constantly programming with them appearance opportunities, media opportunities that they can do to, again, raise awareness and help support our mission work as well. So we also partner with NFL affiliated organizations. So I mentioned the Super Bowl, program that I launched when I came in, and now we've also launched in a normal year, which this is not certainly. We do a sun safety initiative during training camp. We're reminding people about, protecting yourself from the sun for skin cancer reasons. And then in April, it's U.S. Minority Health Month. So we're doing a lot with the NFL draft now to try to help educate people on the work that we're doing for, underserved areas as it relates to cancer. So yeah, there's just so many opportunities. And again, the NFL having such a big platform, being, a sports, organization that promotes certainly health and wellness, makes our message a lot easier, that we're trying to get to really, again, everyone in the country and even, around the world. My role is global in the sense that American Cancer Society partners with 30 other countries and their cancer organizations. And so with things like the NFL London game last year, we were able to tap into that to help expand our message. And we're going to continue to do more of that through our partnerships globally.
I think I'm not the only one who kind of also can't help but think about sports being a megaphone for a lot of good causes, and also with what's happening now, that evolution in the past half year only, including the global pandemic and the Black Lives Matter movement, of course. And in all of this, sports have been very visible, right?
Yeah.
So starting off with the pandemic, I think it was pretty interesting. We talked about it, it was almost an eye-opener for many.
It was, and what we talked about also yesterday is, again, just how unique, what a unique role sports has to play in society in that sense. And for a lot of people in the United States, the moment that the pandemic became real was when the NBA canceled their season, was when an NBA player tested positive for COVID. And a lot of businesses took the lead of the NBA. And that was really what started that groundswell of people shutting down. So I think that's just such a classic example, again, of the privilege we all have in this industry, to be able to really, spark change, set a standard, be leaders in terms of moving major issues forward. And then as a result of that, you saw how players immediately reacted in a philanthropic way to be able to fund the salaries of those part-time arena workers that weren't able to work at that point. So, directly transitioning into my area, which is the philanthropic aspect of sport, is fully on display right now with both of the crises, that we're experiencing right now with the pandemic and racial injustice.
Yeah, because I think that's also I think that goes for a global perspective as well. I'd say for here, it was the Italian football, and it was players catching COVID, people catching COVID, watching that game. It's kind of interesting because I'd say players, except for those really generous fundings they did, they were also educating people to be okay, stay safe, you need to do this and that, you have to take this seriously, right?
Yeah, it's the whole leadership role model aspect. And I think that's also, again, we're talking about brands. That's why brands want to partner with sports teams, whether it's a nonprofit or a for-profit brand, because, their voice matters to consumers who are so passionate, about sports. And a lot of, to your point, people, those are the people they look to for advice and direction. And even just that sense of community and connecting people across different ideologies, different backgrounds. That's the beauty of sport. And that's, again, just why sports and the industry has such a unique role to play in bringing people together, educating people, and helping to move society forward, from a cause standpoint.
Yeah, but I guess also for many, just watching it from outside is pretty strong, with all the players being so educational, and also the strong messages that came across related to the Black Lives Matter movement, and how educational players have been, although they're athletes. So working with this on a day-to-day basis, how do you feel about it when you see this?
Well, I mean, it's just, again, it's so inspiring, to your point, to see, athletes that really care, and being able to, again, work with them in an area that they're genuinely connected into and passionate about. And in a lot of cases, yes, some athletes see philanthropy as a way, obviously financially, to, transition and mitigate and all of that. But I think beyond the financial contributions, these are issues that matter to them. These are issues that they want to be able to make an impact in. Athletes see themselves as their own personal brand. And I think, and as bigger than just the sport that they play, which we've heard a lot of athletes share. And so for them, in working with them on this, I think that is what really comes through is just their genuine desire to help, and to try to utilize their voice and their platform and their brand to make a positive difference and to remind people that they are more than just athletes, that they are, engaged citizens and that they do care about these causes and moving them forward. So the fun part of what we get to do is really just work with them to help tell that story, and to help, bring them in as partners in making this difference, and just to see their faces light up when they see the impact that they're making, is part of the best aspect of what I get to do.
You also mentioned that Arthur Blank, the owner of the Atlanta Falcons, that he really spoke to the franchise about being a part of the community.
Yes.
Would you say that made an impression on you, or was that kind of what you thought already?
Absolutely. I mean, I think working with the Atlanta Falcons, which is just such a great, first-class organization, as one of the first teams that I was with in my career, really set a nice foundation. And Arthur Blank was very intentional about sharing the fact that the Atlanta Falcons are a team of the community. So I mentioned sports teams are small businesses, in that sense, and they're very much guided, and particularly leadership from the top in that example, with Arthur Blank, of saying, hey, we exist because of the community. We are here, to drive the community forward, and the community is us. And I think that also, again, I mentioned how every sports team has a nonprofit side. So it's a very purposeful way that teams approach, the impact they can make locally. Super Bowls are an example of that as well. And I've been partnering, as I mentioned, with the Super Bowl host committee the past couple of years, and really hearing that their goal is to ensure that the Super Bowl brings a lasting impact to whatever market is hosting it that goes far beyond the game. So that mentality that sports have of being, a business of their community, is, again, what makes it unique and what makes it about driving the bottom line and then, moving society forward.
A question came in for you from someone joining this webinar, and I read, did you have a professional mentor early on in your career, and how did that relationship impact your journey itself?
That's a really good question. And you know what? I am not probably going to have the best answer here. I can't think of one person in particular. I think the best way to answer is I've had a lot of, mentors. I've had a lot of people who have inspired me, in different ways, people who have offered me opportunity. I'd say probably, every boss, of mine has been a mentor in some way. So I think that I've had the privilege of just being able to learn from leaders by example. So studying, mentors and leaders that have inspired me and what they've done. I also, do a lot of research on, colleagues, counterparts, leaders in this industry, who are on other sides of it and really model. I think that's how I've been able to navigate and transition, is just by modeling after what I've seen them do. But I guess, I mean, the best, I guess, thing I've learned, again, across the board from all the leaders that I've worked with is just how important it is to see the big picture. A lot of times you can get caught in your silo, and if you're not thinking about the big picture, you miss a lot of things if you become a little bit too focused on the bottom line and what you need to accomplish, short-term goals versus how this is all, leveling up to the long-term goal and the long-term strategy. So the leaders that I most admire are those leaders that I've seen that really put it in perspective, think long-term, take risks, take calculated risks, but take risks in what it is that they're doing. And that's the beauty of marketing, is it is art and science. It is not just looking at the metrics, and I'm a big believer in analytics, but the insight side of the analytics is what's important, and being able to, again, understand that balance of sports being a business of passion. And so it's also taking some risk based on, that passion point that you're tapping into. So hopefully long answer, but hopefully that helped answer the question.
Yeah, I thought it was a good one. But talking about long and short perspectives, could you share anything about your future, or would you mind? What do you
I'd love to do more of this. I mean, I'm again privileged and proud and so happy in working at the American Cancer Society. You know, as I mentioned before, I joined American Cancer Society. I started my own consultancy, so you know, being able to consult as well. I've guest lectured, you know, at privileged of guest lecturing for UCLA for the past couple summers now in their entertainment and sports department. Did a course with NYU, so I just enjoy. I think at this part of the career, you know, being able to continue doing the work, but then also giving back in this way is probably the best part of what I'm able to do now.
I'm thankful for that you want to share with us. Just last question, from a broader perspective, do you see like there's any way for the sports industry as a whole to strengthen its leadership when it comes to communities and be an example maybe even to other industries? Sports already is, to be honest, but is there a way to work even more in that direction?
Yeah, and I'll be honest, I mean, it's very connected to, you know, a major issue right now, and it's diversity and inclusion. And I think when I see hires like the Washington Redskins, you know, who just hired the first you know, African-American president, you know, of an NFL team, that's inspiring. And that really is what I've been passionate about since getting into the business. I joined a group that I'm going to shout out now, Black Sports Professionals, my first year with the Atlanta Falcons. Always in some way been a part of diversity and inclusion on the business side. And I think, again, sports and entertainment industries in particular can and really should set the standard for that. We should not just see diversity on our football fields, on our basketball fields. We should see them in the office as well. We should see them, you know, in the strategy and the business side of this. So that's a major passion of mine. And that's from a business standpoint where I'm inspired, motivated, and want to continue to see that being driven forward in sports business.
Well, what better way to end this session than that quote? That was amazing. Thank you, Sherí. It was great to have you and super inspiring, not only for me, I guess, but for all of you.